I have to tell you that Anne has been amazing. You are so lucky to have her in your society. And I will also tell you that this is one of the hardest workshops I've ever taught because everybody was so intense and involved. Usually in the afternoon there's a little bit of chit-chat. They were just nothing but the painting, which was awesome. I mean, they were so quiet and so serious and so fabulous. So I kind of hate leaving. But I am on my way to the plein air convention in Monterey to demo. So if anybody's there going to that, I'll be in Monterey next week. I'll talk as fast as I can and I'll paint as fast as I can. But I want to show you my idea with demos and teaching really is not to do a finished thing for you. It's to show you how I work because I think that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to share how we do something, so maybe you can get something out of it and take it home with you. And that's how I felt about the workshop. I don't do a lot of demos. But I'm going to talk the whole time like I'm talking to myself. And since there's a mic on me, you'll hear me instead of Anne going, what? Can't hear me. But basically, I was, just to bring around my palette, I usually carry a half box. Don't even use that. I mean, half one of these guys, the Heilman boxes, because I use a really limited palette. And I brought this because I got scared having to be on the road for 2 weeks and going to Monterey and not knowing exactly what I'm doing there other than one demo. But the first thing I want to show you, because it's been life-changing and lots of places like me for this, is when I set up my paper, I tape it all the way around. I tape the bottom. I happen to have this big black tape, so I only have to fold it over. But I put a shelf of tape on the bottom here. And it makes all the difference in the world because you go to your trash can, you go outside, you pull it off, and all your dust falls off. And it means it's clean. One of the ways I do a lot of plein air painting, and I was totally plein air till I moved to Tucson and the heat chased me inside, but I carry like a board with the tape on it and literally 12 or 15 pastels in my pocket and a bottle of water and a paper towel, and I can go anywhere. I want to go up waterfalls. I hike the Rockies with my pastels. I don't want anything to ever stop me, so I've really skinnied down what I carry. This is huge. This is probably 2 years worth of pastels for me. But I don't know, 6 years ago or something, I met Holbein at IAPS, and I'll get through this real quick. I started with new pastel like everybody does, I think, and I did this wonderful Native American woman portrait, and I was so happy I framed it. She had on a pink sweater. Within 6 months, the sweater went to white. I called the company, and they said, we know. And I said, you need to put a warning like cigarettes on your box. These fade. So I won Holbein's at some show, and I started using them. They're called soft pastels. I use them instead of hard pastels. They're very dense, so there's a lot of pigment in them. And rather than carry watercolors, I underpaint with them. But they come individually in tubes, and so what I do is I break these guys in half, stick them in a tube, put them in my pocket, and I'm good to go. And this week, for the 3 days, everyone painted primarily with this box and a few pastels, a few soft pastels. You need some soft, but the point of this box is I'm not pushing Holbein. But literally, when Holbein said, do you want to make a set? And I said, sure. And they said, we have to paint a painting with everything that's in the box, and you can't use anything else. I went, great. And from painting with the Putney painters, I use an oil palette of 12 colors, and I thought, well, my God, if I can do this in oil, why can't I do this in pastel? And I had thousands of pastels, and it's confusing to me. I'm really simple. Less for me is more. If you give me 3 things, I cannot make up my mind. So I mix all my colors. Literally, I mix 90% of them. And then I use a few. I use some dark softs. I use Terry Ludwig, Great American, and Holbein. I color tested them myself in my north-facing window for 6 months. Cover the bottom half exposed, the top they didn't fade. After new pastel, I will never put my time into a painting if I don't know my materials. And I think you have to know your materials. The better you know your materials, the better painter you are. So, I will start. I use the hake brush to wash it on, and I use alcohol. Now, on a lot of the trips I go to, literally, you can't get rubbing alcohol in Italy. It's some weird pink stuff, so I use water. But for my own self in my studio, I use the alcohol because it dries so fast, and I don't want to waste any time. I am not a fast painter. I think my way through my paintings. So for this to dry fast helps me, and it gives me more color layers. But if you're a watercolorist, use watercolor. I just don't want to carry anything else. So I set up, because we don't have a lot of time, I'm not going to put all this in, but I wanted to do a few leaves, and I wanted to do some lemons because they're solid shapes, and you can see how I work. And the other thing I want to tell you is, and I swear I'm going to paint in 1 second. When I lived in Tucson, I had a Meyer lemon tree, and I'd never had a lemon tree before, and it was prolific and fabulous, and I was fascinated with it. So I started painting lemons. My first painting was lemons, and it was lemons and some leaves, and I started to see the pattern of them. And I went from painting the object, which was the lemons. I then moved into the color, which was yellow. And then it's like one day my mind blew open and it became just shapes. So I'm a shape painter. I usually work large shapes to small, but I will look for the shape of a color, and that's what I'm painting. And it just, what I'm trying to tell you is paint something to death. If you paint it enough, you get beyond your attachment to that being an object, and you move into a different place, and I think it's really made me a better painter. So I want to encourage you all to find something you love. It could be an apple. Paint 30 of them. Look at the way the light falls on something. Look at the pattern. There's a musicality and emotion to me to leaves. I adore leaves. I can't ever paint enough leaves and they take over my paintings. But it didn't start out that way, but I look at shapes. So I'll be saying to myself, oh yeah, there's a little yellow shape, or there's a purple shape, or there's a red shape. And that's what my brain's doing. It's not going, this is a lemon. How do I make it look like a lemon? If you're true to what you see and you put those shapes down in that color accurately, it will paint itself. And to me, it's so much more fun. I feel like I've entered a whole new world of painting in the last few years. And so I think it shows in my work. It also helps me to get more of what I want out of my painting. And I always have an idea before I start. I have a concept. It's light, it's pattern, it's flow. I see something before I paint my painting. And I set up pretty much like this in my studio. I don't have a studio, a regular studio right now, but I set them up where I can walk back, because I can spend a day setting up my still life. I want to look at my setup next to my painting to see if I'm getting what I want. When I set something up, there's something about it that I already know that I want. I want to transfer that to this. If I'm not getting what I set up, why am I painting it? So I'm very careful about my light and what I set up, and that's what I go for. And I'm a walker. If you're going to sit, use a mirror, look at what you're doing, but compare. Have a reason for what you're going to paint besides it's just pretty. What's pretty about it? Color, light, shape, value, something. Pick something important out of what you're looking for and go after it, and you'll be amazed what will happen to your paintings. You suddenly are focused. And my apron says thinking painting. That was my studio motto. We think, we engage. We don't wander around in our heads. We get into this paper, and that's what happened in the workshop. Everybody was really concentrated and really on. So, when I start these, most of what I paint is organic. It may have a wonderful old tin pot, or it may have something man-made in it. Most of my stuff doesn't, or if it does, it's a metal, it's a brass or something. So I start with a light color. I don't go in dark because then I've got to cover it. And so many of the things, the flowers I paint, the fruit, they're light. So I don't want to have to cover a black line with a white pansy. So I use this, there's what I call ochre. The other thing I realize is a lot of pastelists don't know the names of colors. So as oil painters we do, but this is sort of a mustard color. And it's a light to medium value, but in this there's a little bit of a rhythm to my lemons. Not much because it's a small space. There's something going this way. That'd be my leaves. So it's a dark down here, dark down here. That's how I start. Then I walk back and I go, well, how does that look with the picture plane? Every inch of this is important. If this isn't beautiful up here, this isn't going to work here. These are just as important as this is. So I think that when I'm painting, so does this look like it's going to work in here for now? Yes. Then I get alcohol, and this is not a really damp brush. This is amazingly dry, and if we had time, I'd walk around and let you feel how dry it is, but I feel like am I talking too fast? No. I have a lot to say.
Is it denatured alcohol or rubbing alcohol?
It's just plain old rubbing alcohol. This one happens to be 91. It's isopropyl. And I think maybe that dries faster than 70. I don't know. I just grabbed it.
And what paper are you using?
This is UArt. I think this is 400. I just got something from Betty called Propanel. Premier.
Pastel Premier.
I did our demo in the class on it, and I loved it. I was a Kitty Wallace addict for years. I liked the UArt. The boards I got from UArt had a little bit of a texture on it, which it's okay because I like the texture coming through. But Betty lent me Premier panel, whatever it's called. I think they'll be at IFs, and I love it. So they're sending me some to Monterey, but they seem to be a lot like Wallace, and they're mounted on board, and it's because I travel so much I want it mounted. I like that a lot, and I'll be demoing Monterey on it, but this is just UArt. I personally probably prefer a white background because of the way I paint, but this is neutral enough that it doesn't matter. Well, I'm waiting for this to dry. You don't want to put your pastel on this while it's wet, because it's sort of I'm afraid I'm going to tip them over. Can you see? Wait, where's the camera? My head's in the way. Oh well. Does that work? Holbein. They're so dense when I drop them, they don't crumble. That's a really big thing for me. I feel like Vanna. So, I got to look at my darks. Now, the other thing I want to tell you, and this is a very small area to set up, you don't want everything facing you. I like flowers that look away from me, look at the side, they're falling over, they're a little bit dead. I don't want these guys, looking right at me either. I want one going this way, one going that way, and my secret to setting this up is, I know I got to paint. I'll talk to you. I did a painting years ago, a pastel, and it was 2 red apples on a white cloth, and I was looking for a name, and I just suddenly, they looked so happy, I called them Happily Married. So now, what that did for me is I look at everything as having a family or a friend relationship or something. It helps to set them up. Like right now, this poor one over here is being shunned. These two are having a conversation. This one's sort of walking away. Anyway, if you can put life into your paintings, whatever you're painting, it helps you with your composition. So I have conversations going on in here, at least in my head I do. You're probably going to think she's crazy, get her off the stage. I'm not, I just love what I do. I am so lucky to get to do this, it's unbelievable. Okay, one other thing let me show you real quick. You're getting the whole 3 days in an hour. If you get too much alcohol on, and you can see when you get drips and stuff, I use Viva because there's no pattern in it and it's soft. So you just pick it up like this. You can also pick extra pastel up this way if you get too much on.
So you're basically just drying the alcohol right now. Trying
Yeah.
to get it dry.
It's pretty dry. This brush has so little in it. I mean, sometimes it barely works it in, but it makes, strokes, and I like that. So I have a greeny brown in here, for lack of a better word, and I'm going to use that to just make some darks. Would probably take a little more time if I were on this stage, but since I'm here, I'll try and put everything in the right place quickly. So the other thing, well, I'll do it. See, that's kind of cool right now.
Yeah, an abstract Japanese.
But see, that's the fun part. When you work this way, you can decide if it's not working before you get too involved in it. And by rubbing this in, or washing it in, I can really go over things easily.
So you do several washes then?
I sometimes wash all the way through it.
Oh, really?
Crazy as that sounds, because we don't have time, but, you know, I have a painting on Facebook. If you guys go to my Facebook, that's a pastel that I did for Monterey. And I found that I used alcohol all the way through this one because I got my tin can in, kind of got my hydrangeas in, but I wanted to have a big sort of dark ochre shape for my hydrangeas. The easiest way for me to get that and still can layer over it is to wash it in. So I ended up washing it in towards the end. I mean, there's wash at the very end under the foreground. There isn't a, you start to feel when you need it. And you go, oh wow, I could use that, make a tone and go over it, and it saves you a step. And I don't blend. And I don't blend, and when my students are going like this, I know they're not thinking.
Stephanie, would you talk a little bit about your touch? How you do it as light as you can?
Magic. Are you asking for my secrets? No, this is the deal. It's extremely light. Here, I'll show you. This is how I like to put pastel on. If you can't see this, I use a darker one. It's transparent. Does that show up?
Yeah.
I want to be able to see through all my strokes. That way I can put color over color over color. I mean, you can put, I probably do put 6 or 8 colors or more on top of each other to get what I want. It also, you know, to me personally is more interesting to work that way, but it's not the only way. But it's really light, and if someone has too heavy of a hand in my workshop, I come over and I say, give me your arm. You hold the pastel. You're a robot. And I take their hand and I just, they keep trying to go like this. Real faster, harder. And I hold their arm and we just sort of lightly drag down so you can feel. It's very gentle. So you can, right? I did that.
At least you don't take a ruler to their knuckles.
I did take a brush to the top of somebody's head. Don't watch me. I'm dangerous. Okay, this looks slow. I'll speed it up.
Is your brush a natural or
It's a hake or hakey.
but it's very soft, or is it like?
It's very, very soft. And these are Holbein because I have Holbein.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that the cheaper brushes, the hairs fall out, they stick to the sanded paper, and it's the pits. Because it's so hard to get them off. And usually you finish and you realize there's one underneath 20 colors, and it's not any fun. So if you're going to work this way, get a really good brush. Okay, the other thing is I always have a paper towel in my left hand. I'm right-handed. I can barely pick up a pastel and not clean it first. Why? I work with such delicate things. I don't want a lovely white or pale yellow pansy that has a piece of black in it that I got to figure out how to get out. And the way my palette is set up, it's color and value. I want to keep as much as possible. Does this? I don't know if this shows or not. I want to keep. You can look at it afterwards. As much as possible, light colors next to each other. So my lights are all at one end, my darks are all at the other. Hopefully the blues are together, the greens, the browns. That way, if they rub off, on each other and I forget to clean it or something, I'm not, that color isn't traveling from a dark to a light. So let's do kind of a yellow shape in here. This would be a, if we were painters, it would be a cadmium. I like to keep my shapes kind of geometric. I think they tend to be stronger that way. You can always make them round. They're too big, actually. But I'll show you how we cut them down. Go back into an ochre. Put a dark on. Probably should have just done one lemon.
Like the challenge.
Pardon?
You like the challenge.
You know what it is? I love it all. I mean, I go to set up an easy demo that I think I'm going to do, and I'll have 30,000 flowers up here, and then I'm going, oh my God, am I crazy? But I can't help it. I go, wow, I love this, I love that. So, I don't want this lilac particularly here, but I want it for color. So we'll just throw some purple up there. Doesn't kind of sound like a cooking show? Throw a little of this here, a little paprika there. I don't know, when I walk up and say, my name is Stephanie Birdsall, I want to say I'll be your waitress, but I'll be your painter today. So I like everything to go everywhere because it starts to build up my background, and I think every color you put on influences what's next to it, so you may as well let it run into it. Then I'm gonna give you one of my other workshop spiels. One of the things I tell everybody is that it's not fair to sit back and say, my painting isn't working. It's not working. Nothing gets on there without you putting it on. You tell me it's working. The painting's fine. Throw a little green in. Actually, I'm going to use a little more of this dark again. So this is how I start to shape this. I'm not drawing this in. Drawing's great, but I have this concern that when you draw something, if you draw a circle and fill it in, you've drawn a circle and filled it in. So you're limited. I don't like to be limited by anything. Life is limitless, and that's why it's so much fun. So I have a dark shape there, so I've been putting in a dark shape. That dark shape happens to run up to the edge of this lemon, or this yellow shape, and it starts to define it.
So you start putting the negative shapes.
There's no such thing as negative shapes. This is so true. Listen to this.
Glad to be a segue.
I'd forgotten that, but you're good. This is the deal. Maybe it's my philosophy on life that I like not to have anything negative. But the point is, this is all positive. What's negative? Show me a negative shape up here. This shape is just as important as that shape. This shape of this corner is just as important as that, because if it isn't beautiful, the painting falls apart. So I think of it all as positive shapes, and they're all equally important. This is as important as that is. So that's my philosophy.
That's good.
Like it or not. Okay.
That's funny.
Let's put a little green on this lemon. Ah, see a green shape. Goes there, goes here. Comes around. I like to think of pieces of color. There's a green piece of color. Now, I have to put some green on the other side of this guy. The other thing is it's very hard for me to just put one color down. I have to constantly be putting down what's next to it to know if it's right. Because I could paint this just so beautifully, and I put something next to it, it doesn't work anymore. It's like you can't have, I keep saying 1 and 1 makes 3 in colors, because they come over each other, 2 colors make another color, and I'm always looking for what's the color. What's the third color that goes between these two to relate them? So, I should probably be quiet and pink.
Everything you say is interesting.
This is the other great thing about working this way. As I'm doing this, I'm realizing that this is the wrong shape and it's too big, so I just go change the shape. I like to cut into things. I feel like it's carving sometimes. I also say it's like, you know, Michelangelo and the slaves. I'm pulling this out of the paper.
Really?
And my mind is saying, okay, what color, what color, what color? So what color can I put in here to make it look like that? It's darker, it's warmer, but it's not the darkest. So now I can stop washing this in at any time, or I can keep doing it. Probably do a little more over here. I'm not even dipping this again. Okay, it's that. See how they look kind of fluffy still? They're not soaking wet. If they were wet, they'd be all flat. I've got this. I'll do some over here. So far, I've used 4 pastels, including the purple. And I want it, and you have to remind me of time, because I want to be sure I get some leaves in.
Are we gonna auction it off?
Does anybody want it? Okay, leaf. Don't you just love them? Leaf, there's shapes. Whoa, flat shapes. You have to think of leaves as being flat. As soon as you think of them as a leaf, they usually don't look like them. You don't have to put in every single little vein. Because when you look at them, you don't see all those veins. You see a shape. Now we need something behind it. I'll put a little, one more time. See, this just was great. I just used my brush, spread it around, gave myself a dark for this to come out again. So I didn't have to come up with another color yet. If you find that I have a break in my speech and you want to ask me something, you can.
It's already beautiful.
Thank you.
Really nice.
That's good. I'm too close to see it. I do exercise, I love it, but I also get my exercise on the paper. You have to get back to see what's going on. Like right now, that's not a good line. I just saw that when I got back. Up here, I can't tell. Too close. The other thing is you have to think of when people walk into a museum and see your fabulous work. You want yours to be the one that they go to. They don't, only artists walk through a museum like this. Everybody else walks in and goes, wow, look at that. You know, seriously. And I can't even see that close anymore.
The guards are always telling the other art, could you back off, please?
You know who the artists are. So easy to spot. Okay, we're gonna go a little lighter here. The other thing is you can't always tell what your colors are if they're dirty.
This concept of the alcohol wash between strokes like that, is that your original idea?
I have no idea. There aren't any original ideas, right?
Oh, right, just like there's no negative space.
Seriously, I don't know how this happened. I really don't. I think it was just necessity.
The mother of invention.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. People ask me, I don't know how I got this way. It was an accident. I really don't. I just know it's how I work. And
And it
it's,
works for you.
it does, and it's really similar to the way I paint in oils too. I mean, people used to walk into my studio, and if I had decent glass on, which I personally think is a good idea to use, you couldn't tell which the oils were and which the pastels were. So I think they sort of fed off each other. Now I don't use black, but for this case I want to show you how I do use it, because when you're in a hurry or you're taking this box or limited palette, it's a tint. Black and white are tints for me. If I put this on, I'm going to go over it with another color. Saves me having to bring a dark brown or dark red or dark green or a dark something with me. And by the way, black and yellow make green, so it gives you an extra color. You probably knew that, but I didn't know it. There's one we haven't used yet. We'll try this. I'm hoping that you're noticing that this leaf is working from the spine out. Okay, once in a while you can do a leaf that's like that, but the truth is they don't grow in stripes. You know, they grow with the spine down the center, and if you want to make a curve of a leaf, I'll show you this real quick. Leaves are trees. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So when you want a rolling leaf or a curving leaf, and actually Richard showed me this, you twist it. The curve is going to follow the spine, okay? So if I wanted to do this accurately, I follow the curve. And it leads you, it makes it easier to paint. Oops. Okay, that's too black. I'm asking myself, what color is this? What color is this? What color is this? There's a little blue on this other one. Let's put a little blue on it. Actually, let's try one. This is orange and green. And yellow. We'll just tell ourselves this is here. Okay, this is where I like a soft and the really dark. Now, I tend to go warm in my shadows because it actually is warm, but even when you have a warm light and a cool shadow, if you really look into that shadow, it gets warm in the center. And sometimes it's bounce off the ground if you're outside, but it's also the absence of light. So to me, I'm not even sure what color these lights are. But if I can get the color right, it is the color of the light. I mean, the light unifies everything. So if you're true to your color, and then you're going to get the light anyway. But I need it dark back here. Isn't that awesome? That's so much fun. Look at the edge that just made. Now, this would be a time where I would decide, oh, I'll show you this. When I put a soft on, 90% of the time, I work it in with one of these Holbeins. And look at how cool that, can you see that color? Didn't that get great? I don't spray my pastels.
She doesn't want it.
I don't fix them. And it's because of the way I work the pastel into the paper. And I've shipped all over the country, and I mean, once in a while I'll have a little dust come off, but not very often. If I were going to spray it for some reason, I would do it in the middle. I wouldn't do it at the end and knock all the lights off. I'm looking at this and the leaves are green, but I can see that there's yellow in them. So I'll put some ochre down. And this leaf has a gorgeous little top on it, little edge. So I want to move this one right now, so I'll just do a shape here. Any questions?
intending for this to be a vignette, or do you usually finish it out?
This is all about time.
Okay.
In an hour, it won't be finished, it'll be a vignette.
Okay.
So, for your lilac, do you just suggest it in the end?
You know, I would, for me, the lilac is really just a color in the back. I might suggest a few little pieces of it, but it needs to stay in the back. So I'm not, I really am, it's really important to me for your edges to go in and out, for things to, you know, go back, come forward. So because it's in the back, I would never paint it to the detail that I would paint the front, or to the extent, whatever that word is.
When you say you work in oil also, is that oil paint or oil pastel?
Oil paint. And I have been known to work on 2 paintings on location side by side at the same time. See, that's the problem if I have a hard time making up my mind. But there was a time in Florida, and everybody knows me, knows this story, where I was living in Naples, and I had gone out one day to the beach and started a pastel, and I happened to have my oil stuff in the car. It was a little crazy at that time, and 2 easels. So I went to set up my stuff, and it didn't look like it did the day before because it was overcast. So what I did, when the sun went in, I painted on one, and when it went out, I painted on the other. And I was really happy. I didn't have to make a decision. And it's true, you know, a lot of times if I like something, I will do them in both because I like both. I mean, I really have a hard time sometimes trying to figure out which one I want to work in. But if I have a subject and I love it in one, I'll do it in the other. Like you'll see hydrangeas in both pastel and oil. Maybe not exactly the same, but sometimes pretty close if the flowers last. And I keep my refrigerator is full of flowers. Sometimes they're dead flowers, but you put things in the refrigerator, they last a long time.
Do you have a favorite way to light your still lifes?
Yes. Natural north light. Who asked that? Did you ask that? Yeah, my studio, my perfect studio that I no longer have, but will have again, I had a window. Okay, first of all, it's got to be similar in Albuquerque, but in Tucson there's so much bounce light off the desert that it affects you, and I feel like it goes into your eyes and you can't see right. But so my window started at 5 feet, facing north, and I had shades that go from the bottom up. So, you know, my light, most of the time my light started about this high. I like it to fall on my subject. That's when I can really see the flow of what's going on with it. So that's my favorite light. I have
No tricky lamps or anything like that?
I have a cool light, which is KUHL. It actually is cool. But it makes me crazy. I will do it. But generally what I would do in my studio, if I started something and I had it far enough along, and I had a deadline, because I always have a deadline, if I were going to work on it not with the natural light, I already had established my light pattern and my color. So I wasn't suddenly going from cool light to artificial light, or natural light to artificial light, and having to go, oh my God, what color is this? I already know. And this is the thing, the one thing I love about a limited palette is that I know what these are going to do. Put me in a dark room and I know what I'm doing because I've used them so much. When I had thousands, how do I know which one I want? You know, there are too many things to pick out for me. For some people, they do it beautifully. It's just not my personality. I'd rather know, you know, for me this works. People that have those, I'm sure they know what every one of those colors are. I just can't do it. So, and because of mixing in oil, this translates easily for me. So I always have a pretty good idea of what I'm supposed to have. Trust me, there's some frustrating times, but eventually I'll get it. I mean, my mind, I always ask myself the question, does it need more red? Does it need more yellow? Does it need more blue or green? So I'll look at this and I go, well, wow, it needs more. It needs to go towards the red, or it needs to go towards the orange, or, you know, I'm talking to myself all the time when you're not here.
You paint from photographs.
No. And I have nothing against them.
Well, I mean, you can control your environment where you can cast your shadow and stuff like that.
I'm just a hands-on person. I don't relate to a photo. And on my trips, I take photos. I think I'll work on a painting when I get home. I have one gallery that keeps saying, can you paint once or two again? Well, I looked at the photo I took thinking, well, I already painted it once. Maybe I can work from a photo. I have no idea what I saw when I was out there. It looks nothing like the photo. There were a few little trickles of red flowers. I had them everywhere. It doesn't work for me. I might look at the shape of a leaf or something in it, but I just don't relate to, it's just not my personality. I like to be hands-on. I like to, I don't know, it's just I like that stuff. But if I had nothing else, I would absolutely work from one. So I'm not against it. I think we all find our own way of what works for us. And so far, if I have to do a demo in IAPS from a photo, I will. But half the time I make them get me flowers and set them up in the booth. I'll be at the Holbein booth. All my friends know where to find me. If I don't see you there. So I need to get that darker. Maybe we'll do this. It's all relative too. One of the things I know is if something isn't dark enough or light enough, it could be related to the darker light next to it. Like maybe I don't have the light enough if it doesn't look dark enough, or maybe I don't have the, whatever the opposite of that is. And how are we for time?
We've got about 20 minutes.
Okay, good. The other thing is, if I'm not sure of a color, I put a little piece on and try it and see if it's right. It blows me away when someone puts it everywhere and then goes, well, I wanted to see if it worked. And the painting is not what they want it to be. A little piece of color will tell you if it's right or not. Very often if it doesn't look right, it could be the texture of it. But when you're painting and you want to try something, don't put the whole background in light blue. If you don't know if it works yet, try a little bit of it and see if it works. The other thing is white's a color. What color white is it? I always tell people it can never just be white. There's no such thing as just gray. What color gray is it? It helps you know what you want to bring out of your painting. Is it a blue gray, a red gray? Is it a pink white? Is it a yellow white? Is it a blue white? Seems like I'm just gonna paint 2 lemons.
The other one's really getting shiny.
I told you. I knew there was a problem with that lemon before it ever got up here. Probably like my youngest son. For a while, you know, he was. Now he's fabulous. He's writing computer games and making a fortune in San Francisco, but trust me. There were some times nobody would ever sit next to him because no matter what happened, Andrew spilled his milk. We'd go out to a restaurant or go to someone's house for dinner, and none of my kids would go anywhere near him because they just knew. And I think they made it happen because they expected it so much. It just was, the universe or something. And now it's like he's the coolest of all. So maybe we should go to that guy next. My head's going in too hard an edge too. I'm talking in my head.
Talk out loud so we can hear it.
No, I forget to talk about it. My head is just going, that's too hard an edge on the top there. I was saying to Ann in the car, we were talking about, she asked me about, going over, why you do strokes like this. And I was saying, sometimes I want to light color the color or soften an edge or something, and then sometimes it's a comb over. She said, I've never heard of that. And what happened is one of the gals I was in a workshop, in painting, and you take a brush and you do it in pastel too, like this and then that, to soften an edge and stuff. Well, she named it after Donald Trump. I will never forget that. So now every time I do that, I go, come over. I'm going to say that. It's a great way to remember something. See, you just associate it with things. I think that one is unfortunately going to get left out. The other thing is if you work this way, we were talking about plein air, and trees and sky. I always work from my light out when I'm putting a dark next to it because I don't want to contaminate my light with the dark. That's true of tree trunks and mountaintops. I'll come, with the light down or with the dark up because I just don't want them to overlap unless I want them to overlap. So I don't want that to overlap. So I'm using this warm brown a lot. And then I have used a little pinky yellow one for my 2 highlights here, but I am supposed to soft pastel for anything else. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We haven't used the whole box of these either.
So Stephanie, you said that Holbein is especially favored for you, traveling, you're on the road a lot for demos, etc. What about just at home in the studio? Do you branch out from Holbein or stick to it?
What you see here is more than what I ever use. I just have learned to mix these colors, and they work for me. It could be Giraud, it could be, some of them are too hard, frankly, to layer like this, like Richardson's hard pastels I gave away. This works for me, this little box. I need to get a really dark and a soft, and I love this, whatever rich brown this is. And I need something for a highlight if I'm doing a landscape. I can make my own sky, but it's easier to have some soft pastels with it. This is it. It's like what you see is what you get. I can't, if I change, it'd waste my time. I'd rather get really comfortable with what I've got and really know it and then get what I want out of it. For me to keep trying other things, I may sound boring, but I'm not interested. It's going to take me away from my real goal, which is making things that I want to make. So it's, I told you, I'm a little weird.
You've got 10 minutes.
Oh, just give me a later flight. And honestly, I think using as many pastels as you want is great. I just can't do it myself.
How long have you been painting?
You know, I actually went to art school years ago in London. I can tell you how many years. But I can't say I learned a lot, but I had a fabulous time. Because they weren't really teaching in those days. They were into abstract stuff, and I went over there because I wanted to get a figurative training, which I never got. But I had to quit for quite a while as a mother of 4.
Ooh.
And so I really picked up pastel. Actually, I started because I thought it was less toxic than oil when I got pregnant with my daughter, who will be 20, who was 20. So I had 4 kids and worked when I could. I also had a job. But you know, I used to set up my kitchen at night. I mean, and the other thing is, I think once you start doing this, you can't stop. I mean, what I thought all the years when the boys were little or whatever, and I wasn't painting, I would realize that I look at things driving down the road through the eyes of an artist. I'm looking at the shapes of the trees. I'm looking at the darks and lights. I mean, I think it gets in your blood, and you can't help yourself. So, you take off a few years. I don't think you've really lost anything other than those damn 28-year-olds coming up behind us that are geniuses.
How long would you normally spend on a painting this size?
That's a really good question. The only reason I say that is that it's awful. If I had 2 days of 24 hours a day, or 8 or 10-hour days, maybe 2 days, depends on the subject matter. But I've taken 2 weeks on something. It has to feel right to me, and I might put something aside, but I'm really a perfectionist, so it's hard for me to walk away and have something that I think could be done better. But something like this, I don't know, if I've done this in an hour, I don't know, 4 or 5, if I didn't need to eat or go to the bathroom or something. There was a painting I did a few years ago, and I started at 6, this was one of my mother things, 6 at night, and I finally stopped at 3 in the morning because I couldn't stand any longer. But the time just flew. It's like meditation. You're so in this when you're in it that you don't think about anything else, and time doesn't matter. You need a comfortable pair of shoes or something to stand up, but I just don't think about it. It's going to take as long as it takes. And I was telling my classes, I don't care if you're fast or slow, it's so long it takes you, it takes you. But I don't have a good answer for that question. Sometimes it depends on the mood I'm in. I'm in a fast mood or a slow mood. Is it fast music or is it classical? When I put fast music on or rock and roll, I paint a lot faster. So I always have shuffle on my computer or iPad because it mixes things up a bit. I don't know what I'm going to get next.
Okay, you've got about 3 minutes.
What do we do now? I have to get back and take a look. I can't see. If I get too close to this and I stand back, my eyes don't focus it. Is you want to put yourself in the position where all of a sudden you've got 3 minutes left and you've ruined it. I do a lot of those paid out things, you know, the plein air deals, and it's like, God, you just don't want to screw around in the last few minutes. Because then you invariably you ruin the eye on a painting. The model's got 3 minutes left and you decide you're just going to fix it. You ruin it. It's done enough. Think. One more thing I gotta do. See, that's the deal. Am I over?
Almost.
Okay, I'll quit.
Still have 1 minute.
Hmm?
1 whole minute.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Careful.
Oh, shucks.
I know. Well, it's fun.
Looks
See,
great.
that was a fast way to spend an hour, right?
Really?
Picture of this before you get it.
Oh, she really got one of the other weeks.
But yeah, you can. I guess that'll do.